Jesus explained to me that we were going to take a look at human history from his perspective. He showed me human history in two different ways. The first way was we looked at an individual, and we would start out looking at their life and see how the decisions they make affected the course of their life. And I'm an engineer, so I understand something about statistics and probability. All of our choices are all carefully scripted by God to be within certain boundaries. We cannot go this far evil, and we cannot go this far good. We can only be this poor or this rich. But there is an infinite number of choices in between. So when a person makes a choice, they will go one way or the other, and they can go back and forth, and they got free will. But there is one path that God has chosen for them, whether it's up to them if they take that or not. And so we looked at that, and it's an infinite number of permutations. So we got an infinite number of choices, an infinite number of permutations for one life. Then we looked at how two lives interacted. And we saw that the choices of one affect the other. And so our choices not only affect our life, but they can also affect others. But God will now allow one person's choices to basically force another person into either heaven or hell. They still always have that free will, that choice there. But our choices do affect others, and quite profoundly. And so you had an infinite number of permutations in one life, an infinite number of permutations in another life. You multiply that, that's an infinity times an infinity. And we looked at that just like that. God's mind can comprehend an infinite number of permutations effortlessly, like we look at ordinal numbers, 1, 2, 3. And so then we looked at how a family would interact, and then how a community would interact, and then how a region would interact, and then a state, and then a country, and then a whole empire. And we looked at the whole of human history from the creation of earth and Adam and Eve to the end of time. And the whole exercise was subjectively about 5 minutes for me. And what I saw in there was very profound, in that there is order and patterns that we can't see from our perspective down here. But everything from God's perspective follows a predetermined plan. It's got purpose. It's got meaning. It's got this rich in symbolism. And there's just amazing opportunities in this life that we just have no idea what we're missing. And at the end of that, I was like, I had just taken the ultimate roller coaster ride. I was just thrilled. I was amazed. And there was like a pause in what we were communication, like Jesus was waiting for me to have some kind of reaction. But whatever it was, he didn't get it from me. And he seemed to almost sigh. And he said, Carl, let's try this from another perspective. And so we went through the whole exercise. And this time we started with a different person, a different, kind of emphasis on history. And there was all this other things. And I saw amazing things, the whole of human history. I knew the details of every life, not only that had been lived and would be lived, but could have been lived, because there are a lot of people who could have and should have been born or were killed early in their lives and didn't get to realize it. But I saw the whole thing, every possible thing. And it was beautiful. I thought, wow, God has done incredible work just planning out our lives beforehand. It talks, Sid Roth talks, Kevin Zadar especially talks about the books that are written about us in heaven. They're real, and they are so amazingly detailed, and they're really infinite in the content too. It's not, just a book you take off the shelf. So we did that the second time, and again there was this pause. And it was like Jesus was waiting for something. And I was, again, excited and thrilled. And it's just amazed at this experience. And I was thinking, why me? How come I'm experiencing all this amazing stuff? And then Jesus said, Carl, I think we need to do this a third time. There was something new in his tone of voice. It was like, there's something you need to get, and you're not getting it. And I knew right away that I needed to pay attention. very closely at this third one because this was going to be the last opportunity. And if I didn't get it this time, I wasn't going to get it at all. And this was historic. I know enough about history to realize I need to do this right, and because I've got to bring something profound back, but I had no idea what it was. So this time when we went through the exercise, I paid very, very close attention. And that's where this second vision of how he showed me human history came in, because this is all happening simultaneously. Now, I can't do justice to this because at that point my mind was in infinite mode, and there's so many details I can't even recall now. But while this is going on, I'm also seeing at the same time human history shown in graphical form, where each person's life is represented by a thread. So the person's life starts as a thread, and during the course of their life, it has several different colors to it. And it starts out white, and if they're living a good, righteous life, it stays white. But if they start to sin, it darkens. So a relatively small sin, it turns like a beige color. A more serious sin, it'll turn tan and then brown. And then finally, when someone is just all out evil, it's black. And when the person dies, it changes color on the entire length to one of two colors. If they go to heaven, it turns gold. If they go to hell, it turns red. At the end of time, the two bundles divided. The gold went up to heaven and the red went down to hell. I've worked as a machinist. And as a machinist, I've learned to measure things very accurately visually. I can look at something and tell, at least at that point, it's been decades since then, so it's not quite as accurate as it was. But at that point, I could look at something and measure it visually to within 1 part in 1,000. And so I realized that 2.5%, plus or minus 0.1% of the general population went to heaven. The other remainder, 97.5%, went to hell. And since then, I've run into other people with near-death experiences, like Howard Pittman, exactly the same numbers. Kevin Zadai did the same numbers. Jeremy Nelson did the same numbers. So I'm pretty confident about that number. And when I realized that, Jesus interrupted the exercise to say, and I am very disappointed in my church. I gave the church everything they needed to win the entire world to salvation in any generation since the apostles, and they have failed. See, the 2.5%, that is the remnant that God keeps for himself. So that's a given. Okay, so that means that the church is right now batting 0.
Wow.
Jesus was very, very angry about that, actually. So anyway, in the third exercise, I was paying very close attention to the colors of these threads. And when it was white, I noticed that when people made a decision, they used a certain criteria: selfless love. And when they sinned, they were being selfish or cowardly, or they were being lazy. Those were the three biggies that were leading people to make sinful decisions: selfishness, laziness, cowardice, and ignorance played a large factor in that too. And right then I realized that the central theme of this whole creation, the whole of human history, was to teach one central lesson, and that is selfless love. And I realized there's only one question that really matters, and that is, what does this have to do with selfless love? If you make a decision based on selfless love, you're making the right decision. If you make it on any other criteria, you're making a wrong decision. And I got that. Jesus did not even continue the exercise. He stopped it right there. He said, Carl, that's the point I wanted you to get. It's time for you to go back.